Good evening, and welcome to this week's episode. My gosh, Chad, I can't talk. I've been three words in, and I'm bumbling already. Holy cow! This week's episode of Paranormal Lens, presented by Jotnick's Paranormal. Guys, hey, it's Jamie Widener here. That's Chad Thomas over there. We're back.
We
Chad,
are.
how's your week?
Do you know how I've been
This is
busy
not
at
a
work?
stumper question.
You know how I've been really busy at work?
Yes, of course.
It's almost done. I mean, the show is tomorrow, so we can't add anything after then.
Oh boy,
So
it's there,
it's
right?
there.
So what do you do when this is all done? What do you do? Walk around with a cup of coffee and just kind of point at stuff and tell people to do stuff again, or?
We don't know what to do because we've gone from 100 miles an hour till like 2. So
Oh, well,
the
I hope
shop
you get a window of enjoyment at
the,
least.
the shop is very clean right now. Let's put it that way.
Is it very bare as well?
Yes, exactly.
That's
So
how it gets
anyway,
clean
it is. So it
until
might, it's been a good week. I got a lot going on, but we had Mother's Day this weekend. So
did. Yep.
but how's your week been?
It's been the same. It was a lot of busy activity, and my work week was busy. This week started off hectic. Today was kind of calm, which is great.
Oh,
Mother's Day did happen. So again, if we missed you on Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. And we had we're in the decision process time now with college kid, right?
mm-hmm.
As you
Yes,
know,
sir.
and the decisions are getting made. Housing is getting established. Some review of like course selection and that kind of stuff is starting to happen. So it's coming together.
Well,
And we
and
haven't even gotten out of high school yet.
yeah,
So
and Jamie, we forgot there was a prom in there. Not
there
for
was,
us,
there
but
was. Well, yeah, yeah,
there was a prom in there, and pictures and all that fun stuff, and post
that's right.
prom,
Post
and
prom and
and
the
this,
trip to the north
yeah,
as well.
yep, uh, around a lot of driving,
A round
and
trip.
this week is choral concert and dance
Last,
recital. It's that end of the year
yeah,
spring. We're doing
the
every
last of things too. Like the final one for Zoe, and
Yep.
it's amazing. How we all got here.
Uh-huh.
So wow, time flies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of time flying by,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about tonight's episode.
Let's do that.
There's a lot of time has flown by, and so tonight we're going to talk about the Morris-Jumel Mansion. Do you know where this is, Chad?
New York was the only thing I know about it.
All right, New York City. That's correct.
Okay.
It is in present-day Manhattan, and it is technically in Washington Heights. So I'm not going to sing anything from the musical for you, I promise.
Appreciate that.
I might now that you said it like that.
It
No,
wasn't.
no, I know better. I know better. One I've seen a few times, so thanks to Disney Plus. But um, Manhattan is today a built-up super place, right? New York City in general, everything is just massive. It's the
Mhm.
largest city in the country. It's one of the largest cities in the world. But back in the day, it was not. So let's go back to 1765. Turn on our Wayback Machine,
Okay.
and looking at an area there on this map that is the southern end of Manhattan is what would be New York City at the time, and where we are is the very top edge of the map, up in the nowhere lands, 11 miles to the north. So country, farmlands,
Mhm.
hills, rocky outcrops, all kinds of nature. Fresh air, fresh water, things you were not finding in the tightly packed city that is, or at least was, New York back then. So, but let's talk about the mansion itself. And this is from Morris-Jumel.com. As the oldest surviving house in Manhattan, the Morris-Jumel Mansion has borne witness to much of New York City's rich and diverse history. Built in 1765 for the Morris family, the original property, located on the ancestral homeland of the Lenape people, comprises 50 modern city blocks. The house would later serve as the headquarters for General George Washington, as well as the British military and Hessian troops during the American Revolution. After serving as a tavern for a number of years, Stephen and Eliza Jumel purchased the house in 1810 and embarked in a series of major renovations, reflective of contemporary 19th century tastes. Thanks to the stewardship of the last private owners of the property, Ferdinand and Lily Earle, the home became a museum in 1904. The mid 20th century saw the neighborhood develop into a vibrant home to many artists and celebrities from the Harlem Renaissance, including Paul Robertson, Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, and Duke Ellington, who once referred to the Morris-Jumel Mansion as the jewel in the crown of. Today, the mansion and its neighboring buildings are part of the Jumel Terrace Historic District. Because of this, the appearance of the immediate neighborhood has changed very little since the beginning of the 20th century. The Landmarks Preservation Commission designated the Morris-Jumel Mansion as an individual landmark in 1967 and an interior landmark in 1975. The mansion was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1966. The mansion is a member of the Historic House Trust of New York City. Okay.
Okay.
A little bit of stuff there going back. Let's get into the deeper history. What we now refer to as the Morris-Jumel Mansion was constructed around 1765 as a summer residence for British Colonel Roger Morris and his wife Mary Philipse Morris and their children. The home, named Mount Morris, of course, why wouldn't it be Mount Morris, right?
Mm-hmm.
Name stuff after themselves, was possibly constructed by enslaved laborers whom the Morrises owned or rented from other enslavers. These individuals may have worked alongside free black workers, indentured servants, and other hired labor. The wealth of Anglo-Dutch heiress Mary Philipse afforded the home to be built with progressive architectural details and modern conveniences and allowed for the purchase of over 100 acres of land from what is likely today's 159th to 174th Streets. This land, I cannot say my own writing. Oh my gosh, Chad, terrible once again. Lenapehoking is the ancestral home of the Lenape people. Colonel Morris, who was a loyalist, fought in the French and Indian Wars alongside George Washington and under General Edward Braddock. After his retirement from the British Army in 1764, Morris wanted a summer home that would be a bucolic refuge from the congestion of the downtown city. So he had the house built in the northern part of Manhattan. At the time, the city of New York, which ended at today's Chambers Street, was located 11 miles south of the house. At the time, the upper Manhattan consisted of farmlands, forests, and rocky outcroppings, and had cleaner water and fresher air than the southern tip of the island. This Georgian Palladian home, with symmetrical proportions and classic details, was erected on land acquired once owned by Jacob Dijkman, an early Dutch colonizer. Inspired by contemporary British residences, the mansion was possibly inspired by the architectural designs of Morris's father and uncle, who were both architects. It features very progressive architectural elements for the time and location, including a large dominating portico, a serving alcove in the dining room, and an octagonal-shaped wing, which was among the first of its kind constructed in the colonies. Seated at the top of what was the second highest point on Manhattan Island, the house provided unprecedented views, including the Harlem and Hudson Rivers, present-day Westchester County, and as far south as Staten Island. Mary Philipse Morris was a descendant of a prosperous Old Dutch colonial family named the Philipse, whose estate was located further north along the Hudson River. The Philipse family made their fortune in the slave trade and were among the largest enslavers in colonial New York. The Morris family lived in town, in what was today downtown Manhattan, on Stone Street during much of the year, spending their summer months at Mount Morris. In 1775, British Colonel Morris, a loyalist, left for London to avoid bringing attention to the Morris family during the turbulent early revolutionary times. His wife, along with 4 of their 5 children and servants, most likely included enslaved people, traveled to Philipse Manor Lower Mills in 1776, now known as Philipse Manor Hall in Yonkers, to escape the escalating conflict of war. Colonel Morris returned to the colonies in December of 1777 and presumably stayed in Lower Manhattan with his family. He eventually served as Inspector of Claims for Refugees for the British Army in New York from 1779 until 1786. Let's think about the Revolutionary War for a second.
Mm-hmm.
On September 15, 1776, General George Washington occupied the abandoned house with his officers and domestic staff after the Continental Army's retreat from Brooklyn after losing a battle. The elevated location and size of the house made it ideal as a military headquarters during the Revolutionary War. The Battle of Harlem Heights occurred on September 16, 1776, just south of the house in the area known as the Manhattan Valley, near today's Columbia University campus, and was the first battle where the British retreated from the Continental Army. Washington remained in residence for approximately 5 weeks and used the second story of the octagonal room as his office. is believed that Washington slept in what is now the William Chase bedroom on the second floor with his enslaved valet, William Lee, in close proximity. After Washington departed, the mansion at various times became the headquarters for other troops until Evacuation Day in 1783, including English General Sir Henry Clinton and later auxiliary German mercenary soldiers known as Hessians, who were under the command of Baron von Kleipsen. The mansion is among the few remaining structures in the nation to house all sides during the conflict. Later in history.
Hmm.
At the end of the war, Mary Morris was one of only 3 women accused of treason in New York, and the property was confiscated as a result of the New York's Legislative Act of Attainder in 1779, which was written by Mary's cousin, John Jay. The house and land were then sold to help offset the large war debt incurred by the Americans. Between 1783 and 1810, the house was used briefly as a tavern, a stagecoach stop, and as an inn for travelers before being largely abandoned. The surrounding acreage was used by tenant farmers. In July of 1790, President Washington visited the house with some members of his future cabinet and their wives and families for a formal, lavish meal on the surrounding grounds. Among the guests were Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Abigail Adams, Alexander Hamilton, Eliza Schuyler Hamilton, Martha Washington, Henry Knox, and Lucy Knox. Washington wrote about the visit in his journals and described the house as being in possession of a common farmer at the time.
Hmm.
But doing pretty well for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes a change. So, 20 years after Washington's dinner, the house was purchased by the Jumel family. Stephen Jumel, a French wine merchant and a well-established importer of luxury goods, married American Eliza Bowen in 1804. 6 years later, in 1810, the couple purchased Mount Morris along with its acreage. Eliza grew up in poverty in Rhode Island and was largely self-educated, becoming fluent in French. Later in their marriage, she proved to be an astute businesswoman who managed the Jumel's real estate deals. Despite her wealth, it seemed as though she and Stephen were never fully accepted into the highest echelons of New York society due to their humble and immigrant origins. After purchasing the house, the Jumels embarked upon a need of renovation to modernize and repair the residence, which had been abandoned for nearly 30 years. Some of the most substantial alterations included the remodeling and expansion of the porch, the extension of the balcony, widening of the entrance portal, and the inclusion of new side lights and a fashionable fan window containing the stained glass roundels seen today. It is also through that thought at this time access was given to the Widow's Walk, and the space in the third floor portico became an additional living quarters. Much of the decorative 18th century woodwork in the parlor, library, and 2 bedchambers were removed. The redecorating campaign of the 1820s included the purchase of a suite of furniture commissioned for the Octagon Room by Scottish-American cabinet maker Duncan Fife. Stephen died in 1832, and Eliza married her second husband, the former vice president, Aaron Burr. Cue the booze on that one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In our house, anyway. In the home's front parlor in 1833. Eliza Jumel filed for divorce 4 months after the marriage and hired Alexander Hamilton Jr. as one of her attorneys handling the divorce. Burr passed away in a Staten Island rooming house the day the divorce was to be finalized in 1836. Eliza never remarried, but did continue her aspirations to be part of New York society. She converted the mansion into her primary residence and summered in fashionable Saratoga, New York. While in Saratoga in 1841, Eliza hired free African American Anne Northup to be her cook in New York City. Northup's husband, Solomon, had been abducted and sold into slavery in the South, and this was recounted in his memoir, 12 Years a Slave. Mrs. Northup and her 3 children lived with and worked for Eliza and her family at the mansion. When Eliza died on July 16, 1865, she left the estate to her sister's children. A highly contentious and publicized battle over the estate ensued and lasted for 17 years, ultimately reaching the Supreme Court. Through it all, the home was sold in 1887. In 1889, the home became the residence of an early French photographer and filmmaker, Augustin Le Prince, and his family. Le Prince was a trained chemist and inventor. He rented the mansion with the intentions of debuting the first moving motion picture at the residence. However, in 1890, Le Prince and the film disappeared before the film could be publicly shown. His family remained at the house for a short time after, while pursuing the circumstances of his disappearance, but Le Prince was never found. As a side note to that, some believe that Thomas Edison may have had a hand in Prince's disappearing, as he was also about to unveil his motion picture around the same time. Coincidence?
Maybe.
Maybe. And then, General Ferdinand Earle and his wife Lily and their children resided in the home from 1894 until 1903, referring to the estate as Earl Cliff. Following Ferdinand's death in 1903, Lilly campaigned for the home to be preserved as a historic site, and the city of New York purchased the building in almost 2 acres for $235,000. And lastly, today, the mansion and its neighboring buildings are part of the Jumel Terrace Historical District due to the structure's historic significance and representations of housing for 3 centuries. The mansion, a member of the Historic House Trust of New York City, was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1966, followed by its designation as an individual landmark in 1967, an interior landmark in 1975 by New York City's Landmark Preservation Commission. During the bicentennial celebrations of 1776, Queen Elizabeth II visited the mansion and toured the grounds and historic gardens. Anyone else find it odd that the Queen of England came over to help us celebrate the beating of our country and earning our independence? Seems kind of wonky.
Yeah.
All right, and here's a fun fact that was I shared this with members of our household last night. In 2014, writer and composer Lin-Manuel Miranda sat in Aaron Burr's bedchamber and wrote songs for his hit musical Hamilton.
That's sort of cool. Yeah.
Yeah. The mansion today serves as a community space featuring unique arts, theater, and educational programming to connect the history of the house and its inhabitants to the present. It's a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of information real fast.
Lot of historical names there.
Yeah, a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the names we all know and if students of history know pretty well, and including John Jay, which is a signer of Declaration, the Washingtons, Hamiltons, Thomas Jefferson, etc. So that's a lot of history, but that's not a lot of paranormal stuff, right? And this is Paranormal Lens after all.
Yeah, I'm expecting something, Jamie. You're not rapping here, are you?
I could,
No.
but no, we will not. So let's talk about the paranormal claims. So from NewYorkCityHaunts.com. As you can ascertain from the above, the Morris-Jumel Mansion has seen a lot of history and a lot of tragedy in its many years. Such houses tend to lend themselves to being the sites of hauntings, and this one is no exception. Many of the rumored hauntings come from Aaron Burr's former bedroom. Having died shortly after his divorce from Jumel, the old founding father may be trying to get another shot with his lost love. Or maybe he's just after the money he couldn't get his hands on while alive. Either way, many have reported hearing disembodied voices and creaking footsteps from that room, with the sounds occurring after hours. Unlike many sightings, the Morris-Jumel Mansion has some evidence to support its paranormal claims. A paranormal investigator who has investigated the mansion has a video clip of a strange disembodied voice. The mansion staff are split on what the voice is saying, as we almost always are, right? I think
Yep.
it's this. I think it's that. Well, some claim it to hear it saying, I love you, while others think it's saying they're laughing at you. I'm sure the only word that's clear in there is you,
Yep.
right? So if there's a likely culprit for the voices, it would be Eliza Jumel. Most people who come away from a ghostly encounter at the mansion describe someone matching Eliza's description. She is typically dressed in white, 18th century dress, and is quite the chatty spirit once yelling at visiting school children to shut up. Some also claim that her presence causes other ghosts to fight over her, namely her 2 former husbands. The museum staff maintains a record of all of these mysterious encounters, known as the Book of Haunts. Also, people have reported another strange experience from the mansion that doesn't involve a ghost. Instead, it's a seemingly regular looking clock inside the dining room. Regular looking save for the moon decoration that covers the clock's face. The clock is known to be a bit of a flirt, and the moon will wink at handsome men when they pass by. But don't worry if it doesn't wink at you. It doesn't always feel flirty.
Okay.
All right, let's road trip it. Let's go. Let's get it now.
Yep. Yep.
From usghostadventures.com. Visitors to the mansion turned museum report hearing footsteps where there shouldn't be any, knocking on walls and doors, voices, yelling, and strange static electricity pulsing through the air. There are claims that a Hessian soldier died on the stairs at the mansion has been seen at or near them ever since. An American Revolutionary War soldier has been seen patrolling the second floor outside General Washington's former office. Soon after Eliza's death in 1865, she was first seen in a white gown wandering the property and crying. But these days, she's grown weary of the home and is more likely to yell at passerbys and children. And here's another version of the tale of the students being told to shut up.
Mm-hmm.
A group of school children were waiting in line to get into the mansion for a tour. An elderly woman came out onto the second floor balcony and told them to be quiet. When a member of the museum staff finally let the kids inside, they asked about the woman on the second floor. However, that single staff member was the only one inside the home at the time. Now, being told to be quiet and told to shut up are two different things, right? So,
Yes, very, very
you know,
different things. So, Jamie, here, a
yeah.
quick comment from Heather here. Do you think Captain Isaac Higginfoot from the show Ghost was at the house? He hung out with all those guys.
He might be hanging out there too. He's not that far away down in where is that show? It's in PA. He might. You never know.
Yep.
So going back a little bit further, Stephen Jumel's death was shrouded in mystery. His spirit is said to appear with a facial wound from his carriage accident. He died. Believingly, he died in an accident with a carriage, horse and carriage.
Mm-hmm.
One member reported feeling an inexplicably cold spot in Stephen's former room, followed by the sensation of an unseen hand touching her shoulder. I couldn't let this part of it pass by, Chad. Hans Holzer, along with medium Ethel Johnson Myers, investigated the mansion on 2 occasions. During a seance, Stephen came forward and claimed that Eliza had murdered him by opening wounds he suffered in an accident with a pitchfork. He claims she stood by and watched as he bled to death. Now that's something.
Yeah.
That is something. Like to come back and
And
wow.
accuse somebody of your murder. Yeah.
Yes, that's deep. Now, with all that aside, there's also a belief that he may have died of pneumonia too. So here we have a wide spectrum, right?
Uh-huh.
Anywhere from pneumonia to getting pushed off a moving carriage to be getting stabbed with a pitchfork. So also proof that there were very, very, very poor records at the time.
Exactly.
So another, Isabella, a servant girl, reportedly took her life in the mansion. Her presence is often felt in the servants' quarters and the back entrance, where she's been seen sobbing uncontrollably. In one instant, a visitor claimed to have seen a woman's figure falling from a height and screaming before disappearing. Another version of this is that Isabella became pregnant to the son of a former owner, and when discovered, he abandoned her, leading to her suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go, and I encourage you to, there are public paranormal investigations. These are guided events. They're usually 7 to 9:30 in the evening, so not terribly late. Something we can all manage.
Mm-hmm.
You can also book a private paranormal investigation. It's also 2.5 hours, but it starts later and it must conclude by midnight because this is a working museum. And in the spooky season months of September and October, there are candlelight ghost tours that are also guided. Not real candles for fear of burning the house down, but you get a guided tour with candles wandering around.
Cool.
Information on all events can be found at morrisjumel.com/program/paranormal. And I have a slide of that running through here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, in conclusion, it is worthy to note that New York City rumor mill claimed Eliza Jumel killed her husband several different ways, including pushing him from a moving carriage, poisoning him, burying him alive, blah, blah, blah. Regardless of how Stephen Jumel died, he left a hefty fortune to Eliza. It is believed that after her divorce from Aaron Burr, she became a recluse and eventually suffered from dementia. She spent her last years drifting through the mansion, her hair unkempt and her clothes soiled, perhaps haunted by her past actions. Given its long history and defined turmoil, I find it hard to believe that Morris-Jumel Mansion is not an active place. And I'm really looking forward to going and finding out.
Do you have a date booked, Jamie?
Not yet, but I have a thought about it.
Okay.
Let's cite some sources and then we'll discuss. So obviously morrisjumel.com, NewYorkCityGhosts.com, USGhostAdventures.com, RealHaunts.com, and our good friends at AtlasObscura.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chad, when are we going?
I don't know, but it sounds like an interesting place. Heather
Really
wants to know if you've been there.
I have not, and I'm mad. I'm mad about this. So I was in New York City back in December, everybody, we all went up. The kids, Steph, I, Grandma, they went to see Suffs on Broadway. I had the morning, afternoon, all to myself. And I was thinking, where should I go? And I realized where this was, from where Broadway is to where the mansion is 12 city blocks, 13 blocks, which is a long way. And, I had to get an Uber, get a cab, whatever. And I had a window of time that was this much.
Mm-hmm.
So instead I drifted off and I went over to like Rockefeller Center, all that
You did the
touristy.
Christmas thing, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was Christmas, all that touristy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wish I would have done it instead, because the show went longer than I thought it would. I wound up being outside for like 4 hours, which in December in New York City is a wind tunnel of frozenness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, couldn't feel my fingers after a while. Blah blah blah. I had time. I think I had time. And if I go back, when we go back, I know we will. I will do it for sure then if I don't get there before. But
Okay.
um, it was that or go the other way south to the Ghostbusters firehouse. So they're
Yep.
both in Manhattan. So,
Yep.
but this isn't Manhattan like we know it.
No.
It is truly north, and that's part of the problem. Like for me, at least on that day, it was so far away that I just couldn't get the distance figured out and the timing. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it is definitely uptown, and I think in the time, this would have been pretty cool. With the country layer that it was, not now it's all city. It's nothing
Right.
like it's just now the house looks. It's kind of like, I'm going to say this to be very loose with my comment, but it's kind of like Graceland in Memphis. When it
Uh-huh.
was built back in the 50s and 60s, whatever it was, it was a stately home on the edge of town, but now it's right next to a highway.
Right. It was
You know,
rural, but now it's
now,
not.
yeah, and this is that.
Yeah.
Not to compare the two, and not to be
Right.
disparaging either way, but it was stately in its
Mhm.
time. It's got a gate in the front. It's got the whole kind of big wraparound. It had 100 acres. I mean, that's a lot of land. What that is worth today is amazing for
Right.
the city rates. So
Well, but that wasn't typical for houses, like for
right,
estates in that time,
sure,
which we think of it. It was a time of you had things or you didn't have things
yeah,
in this country, and so landowners owned a lot of land, and they had people working for them, and that's what this was. Jim says it's an amazing house with an amazing story, what history and mystery. Thanks for acknowledging it.
that's a nice
um,
way of saying that, Jim. Thank you, appreciate
so,
it.
and Bert said it looks beautiful inside.
Yeah, and then Bert's next comment is why I'm laughing. Uh,
Which one?
this one, only 2 hours and 52 minutes from our house. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Hey, well, and I don't know if you saw this, but Bert said, "I'll drive."
We'll drive, right?
So there you go.
Yeah, as long as we can take the new bike, right? Um,
So
so,
anyway,
well,
it does seem like there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of energy, history, all that there, Jamie. So I don't see why it wouldn't be
agreed.
accurate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Eliza Jamel alone, without the Morrises and their, the builders, like they're the
Mhm.
ones that designed this house, and it was their thing. There's some negative circumstances from them losing
Mhm.
control of the home. The Espionage Act or the Traitor Act, whatever it was. Being accused of treason. That's heavy. That's significant, and having the property taken from you. It's that
Well,
that
and then to
alone
have
is enough to leave us, some negative energy behind.
right, and then to have it sold to pay debts of the war, like
Yeah, in a
that's
country that you weren't
powerful.
supporting, right?
That's powerful there. I mean, some other things I picked up from your information is you never think of, well, I shouldn't say you never. You don't typically think of New York City or state as a big slaver
Right.
area.
Yeah.
But
I want to make sure that was commented on.
yeah, like it just it the fact that the owners of this were some of the largest slavers in the country, or in New York at least, is just
Mhm.
that's another amazing point. So um,
Absolutely.
and Bird says it's even older as Indian land or Native American land. Yeah, it's just, yeah, there's just, again, so much history, so much energy, and I mean, that area was really important to the Native Americans.
Absolutely.
and
And in this
and they
being a
got
high
out
point,
of it. Mhm.
was a key strategic location for a lot of reasons as well.
Mhm. Um, the other thing that there are two things here that are glad that have been done. Washington and his journaling. He did so much journaling. Um, like it seems like he and Alexander Hamilton could have written books and books and books and books
Well,
and
they did.
well, yeah, yeah. I mean,
You
but
would say that it was like they were writing like they were running out of time.
yeah, exactly. Like, there might be a song there, Jamie. We should look into that. But the other thing is the preservation societies. The fact that this land, I mean, and obviously there's no way you could preserve 200 acres or 100 acres or whatever it was, all those city blocks. But the fact that this and the 2 acres around it, I think you said, were preserved.
Yeah, there's a a greenery around it.
Mhm.
What's
Just to
really
give it a
well,
buffer. Yeah.
to that, I came across an aerial view that I didn't include because it really didn't go in context. But there's like an apartment building like a block away, you know,
Uh-huh.
like a high rise apartment building, and it looks so. And it's not new. It's probably like a 70s or 80s building, but
Uh-huh.
it's even that looks so out of place in the line,
Right.
the sight line.
Hmm.
Um, but it's on the other end of whatever the historic district is, so it's good to be done, but it just looks wonky, And um, I grew up in Columbia, PA,
Hmm.
and I grew up in the historical district. And there is like the Wrights Ferry Mansion on Second Street, Second and Cherry. Essentially, I grew up on Cherry Street, the first house. So all of those homes are like these big places, these big houses, like mansions, if you will.
Right.
I don't want to call it that 'cause I'm not. That sounds pompous, but these really big houses, all along Second Street as well. And that that was work to be saved. Like those homes were sometimes some of them got broken into apartments, and there's before anything could be done about it. But a lot of those are still single family homes, and it's amazing. Looking at that, and then going a couple blocks away, and you've got you know row homes. That
Right.
were needed for workers to work the river, commerce sections of like
Hmm.
the industry that we had, and then also the canals and so forth that were bringing goods up and down the Susquehanna. So it's so amazing to me. I mean, that's a very small scale versus New York City. I'm not trying to compare,
Right.
but I have that in my like that vision, like that my house could be that house for them if something else would have been there instead of us. Like
Hmm.
people lived in Columbia, and Columbia only missed being the nation's capital by one vote back in the day.
Right. Hmm.
Mr. Washington, punk. What's he know? Anyway,
Well,
so what do you think? Haunted, not haunted, paranormal activity? What do
oh,
you where you
I think there has to be paranormal activity there. Um, some of the, were we surprised that there's a woman yelling at students when they're being noisy? No. She
sure.
wants to keep her house in order. Like,
Yeah.
children should be seen and not heard, is what is the what from her day, I'm sure. Um,
Have you ever said that to your kids?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna go try.
One will just stare at you,
Yeah.
not speaking.
It's not yeah, they don't care. But there was an era when you're right, absolutely correct. And that also could be, if we're talking, we don't know what era Eliza is in the time of
Hmm.
her presence there, but if it's near end of life, she's dealing with dementia, and the idea that there's intrusion, then there's a lot of things that come with that.
Hmm.
Yep. Oh, very cool. Well, Stefan, we might be neighbors depending on which block you were. So I'm on the 200 block, or was anyway, not anymore, unfortunately. So very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting history, and I'm sure there's residual activity there as well. Um, it just yeah, there's got to be so much energy there, and
Yeah. And,
just to
well,
be a fly on the wall there in any of these time periods, there was so much that had to happen. Like when all the signers, the declaration that you talked about,
Yep.
were there having just a dinner because there was available to do that, and just
Yeah, they write just to sit in and eavesdrop on some of that conversation. Yeah,
hmm
outstanding. Well, the house has been on a lot of shows. So if anybody's really truly interested in exploring it more, Ghost Adventures have been there. The Hosier Files have been there, um, and a few others. I'm drawing a blank, unfortunately. But if you Google it, if you go to YouTube and Google Morris-Jumel Mansion, you'll find a lot of episodes of people and places who've been there. So,
hmm
um, I think we need to figure out how to get there and do it for ourselves as our team too. So,
hmm
uh, I'm proposing an opportunity maybe for next year. I know this year's calendar is kind of full, but that's something I think we can look forward to and make it happen. So it's
yeah.
reasonably close, you know, 3 hour drive, give or take,
hmm
um, from us here in South Central PA. We have a few friends in northern New Jersey, New York City area, so see if they will come along as well.
Yeah. Did you have any information on how many people can investigate, or
10, 10, a team of 10.
okay,
Yep.
that seems to be the normal number.
It's a safe number, right? Yeah.
Mhm. It is a very tight window from the sounds
Because
of it,
11 would be too many.
though. But you said a 2.5 hour investigation because you
Yeah.
have to be out of there. I mean, I understand it's an active museum and staff doesn't want to be there all night. And,
Yeah. There may be abilities. I don't know what time the start is, though. So that private investigation seems like it could start sooner if there's not an open event in front of it. Um, so we'll see. I know Bert and Heather are here, so here's my thought when I said I have a thought about how to do this, and I know Chad, you're in this too. But we're all heading to Vermont in a couple weeks, couple months, two
right.
months. New York City's on the way there and on the way back. So,
But I'm not on that trip.
oh, that's right. Okay, well, Lynch's, I'm talking to you then. And anybody else going along with us? That might be a stopping on the way home anyway. Maybe a good stop point. So.
Hmm,
Like a pause point,
correct.
a little bit of a detour to the east, perhaps, but the way I normally go to Vermont. But I'm curious to think maybe we could. So,
Yeah, could be
and
a
just
good trip.
to get the museum tour at least,
Yeah.
get some more information, a little recon on it.
hmm
So, and Chad, you as well as anybody, we like did Fort Mifflin during the day. Double
hmm
for Bert. Thank you. Um, we were at Fort Mifflin back about a year ago now. Gosh,
Yeah.
the daytime, and we had just a little bit of light equipment with us, and we got activity
hmm
that was quite interesting. So stuff doesn't happen at night only or
Right.
exclusively.
Right.
Activities going on all the time. We just have to be attentive to it. It's easier to document at night sometimes, but
Yep.
uh, you
But
never know.
speaking of Fort Mifflin,
Yes,
there's another place we need to get to.
there is. I know. I know. I know. I know. I know.
So, so.
And I have a different road trip idea for you actually later this summer. So
Oh,
um,
okay.
possibly a podcast episode as well.
Oh, okay.
So we'll off
Triple
camera. Yes, yes, excellent.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I find this place fascinating. I first found out about it a couple years ago through a whole Zero Files episode. And they had an interesting night of activity, and knowing Hans has been there, obviously I'm a fan of his work.
Yep.
Um, and I'm not going to be shy about that. Walking in his footsteps to some degree as well would be really interesting to me. So um, I'm really, really looking forward to an opportunity to do that
Cool.
there.
Yeah, it sounds like a good thing, a good goal.
All right. Well, that is I say all the time. That's my book report. So I'll
Okay.
stop there.
Cool. So I was sort of sidetrack, whatever, sidetracking here. I was talking with a guy from work today about paranormal stuff, and he started off by saying, talking about how kids' imaginary friends are really spooky. And I'm like, why do you say that? So, I was trying to dig and see, because he knows I'm into the paranormal and investigating and stuff. And he's
Sure.
like, I don't know, it's just weird. It's spooky. It scares me. And I'm like, well, why does it scare? Trying to, and it's just, he admitted that this all intrigues him, but he's not comfortable with the unknown.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what makes this scary to so many people. They're not comfortable with the unknown.
I understand that completely. Welcome to my
So,
house.
so it's really interesting that that's what's holding so many people back
Yeah.
from wanting to learn more about it. But that's what's keeping, that's what they're scared about, is they don't want to learn more about it.
Sure.
So it was just intriguing to have that conversation with somebody today.
Well, I think I've said this before, and I apologize for being redundant, but I think it's been long enough that nobody remembers what I say anyway, right? So it's kind of like in coming through the nonprofit world. There's when you're giving a presentation of information, like you're doing a campaign pitch, to a place or a person. There's two kind of things. There's the analytical, fact driven people, and then there's the story connecting. What's the work do? All that kind of stuff. People,
Right.
and the adage is that facts tell and stories sell.
Hmm.
If you can combine a presentation to mix those two together for the analytical folks and for the dreamers, for lack of a better way of saying it,
Right.
you can touch on everything. And I think, I'm being very loose to say what I'm about to say, so this is my opinion only, but I think a lot of us who are working in the field and, we're dreamers. We want to believe in something else, something different than what we know, and we're willing to go forward for it.
Yeah.
And the analytical folks are pausing because they want to know the details before they get to the next thing, to commit to
Right.
that thing. And I'm being very loose, but that's sort of what it seems like to me, or sounds like to me. And but once you and I want proof too. So
Right.
bear with me. I'm in the same spirit of like a half brain of each kind of thing, or halfway on each side. I'm three quarters one and a quarter the other maybe, but I still want details. I want facts. I want
Hmm.
evidence. I'm still skeptical
Right.
of everything before I'm willing to commit and admit that it is a paranormal opportunity, and what we've captured or what we've experienced is that, because there's so many things it can be first.
Right.
But again, once we start chipping away at all the other stuff it could be, and nothing is left, then it has to be paranormal because it's no longer normal.
Right.
So,
When that's where when you started talking, you saying we're more on the dreamer side. I think we're more down the middle,
all
where
right,
it's. I think because and most people who are in the field are more down the middle, because you have to have that openness to the story, but you want the proof, or you wouldn't be taking equipment in. You would just be going in for the scare factor,
sure,
and
sure, that's
that's
fair.
not what most of the people are
Well,
about.
the people we
Right.
know we work with are right.
Right. Bert
We're
said everything is unknown until you learn.
right. That's very fair.
So, which is
And you don't know what you don't know.
yep.
You know,
Nope. Uh,
that's a really that to me is really interesting. I'm glad you had that conversation. I have those kind of conversations with coworkers and people I run across, people who know what we do all
mhm.
the time, and like, how can you go do that? And well, how can you not? And it's
Right.
a difference of opinion. I don't know how to say it. Like otherwise, and trying to be tactful here. Like, what the heck's
Mhm.
wrong with you? Why wouldn't you? You know.
Mhm.
But I get it that it is not the cup of tea for many, and
Right. When
but they're curious enough to have the conversation
and
and want to
those
explore
people
it a
are
little bit more.
right. There are also people who don't want to know. They
Yeah,
don't want to know that there's something after this.
sure, that's fair.
So yeah, it's to each his own, I guess, is the way that you got to look at it, right?
That's absolutely true.
So,
And the fun thing about this is we and at least you and I and our team, we do not push stuff on others. If you're not interested or you don't want to know, we're not going to force you.
no.
And it is your choice to engage how much or as little as you wish.
Mhm.
You see, we do public investigations, right?
Yep,
We
I was
joke
just
about
thinking
this all the
this.
time. She brings the he who doesn't believe in any of this stuff, or vice versa. And or doesn't want to be there, all that stuff. And more
Mhm.
times than not, by the end of the night, the non-believer, the uninterested, is interested and
Mhm.
or engaged at least.
Yeah,
Um,
most times.
most of the time, right?
Last
Most of the time, not every time, but
last
most
investigation, we had one who
just
was
didn't.
no, yeah,
Okay.
was taking sides of you would have just questioned of spirits in the brewery,
Oh,
like, wow, how did you get there? Like, so anyway, so yeah, but like we said, to each his own, and
okay.
that's You got to have every instrument in the band, Jamie. Right?
Yep, that's true. That's how you get a band. I'm going to post this comment. Bert says, I was going to say that some people like being blind to what's around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Right.
Yeah.
You're right. All right. Well, speaking of doing on a tangent, right?
Uh-huh.
Let's reel it in.
So sorry, it was one of those conversations that sort of stuck with me, and I wanted to share. And
It's a great conversation, and I welcome that. If anybody knows me, I'm happy to talk about this all day long.
mm,
So let's bring it forward. I'd love to hear your opinion, your thoughts, on the paranormal, on whatever you may believe it to be. I'm happy to have that conversation at any time. So
yeah, yeah.
let's do it.
So should we have a conversation about what's coming up, Jamie?
Yes, let's
All
do.
right. So upcoming episodes. Sorry, just you want to throw that up?
to back to the all the instruments make a band. Bert saying also that not all instruments are in tune.
So,
All right.
well, that sort of ties into my episode next week, the Dybbuk box.
Yes. Perfect.
So there you go. I'll be digging into that a little bit. That sort of ties into Jamie's April 1st episode a couple weeks ago about paranormal hoaxes.
Yep.
But well, I'll explain more about that next week.
Okay.
The 27th, Men in Black. Jamie will be digging into that. I can't believe we're talking about June already, but I will look at the Menehune.
Yep.
Then June 10th, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. June 17th, one that I'm excited about, but leery to share. But Hauntings of My Childhood Home. Experiences that I had, not just me, most of them are not ones that I had, but other people. We're hoping to get Alex on with us that night because he actually had a personal experience that I saw him have, and it was probably one of his first paranormal experiences, and I'd just like him to share that. So looking forward to that.
Cool.
Then the 24th, Gettysburg.
Yep. And where is your childhood home?
Just south of Gettysburg, about 7 miles.
Yep.
So,
So that ties nicely.
yep. And then, believe it or not, July 1st, we're going to be doing a season 2 wrap up.
Man,
So,
oh man, oh man.
if sort of a challenge for everybody out there, if you look back at the shows we've done in this season, just shoot us an email with your favorite one or two shows and what you liked about them. Jamie, if you can think about that too, and
Sure.
um, we'll just discuss it. We'll wrap it up and maybe we'll talk about what's coming up in season 3. Can you believe we're
Mm.
at season 3 in like
I can't believe we did 3 episodes.
so anyway, so yeah, just shoot us some ideas about that, what you really liked about the season or what you didn't like.
Sure.
That way we can make
Both
sure
ways.
we tune it so the band is more in tune.
See,
There we
I like how you did that.
So, um, Jotnik's Paranormal Investigation this coming weekend. We are going to be with Stacy and Gary from Land and Legend Paranormal at Booby's Brewery. We had a great episode with them last week. Jamie, I think you and I agree that was one of our
That was
better
a lot of
ones.
that was a lot of fun.
It
They
was
were
a
a lot
lot
they're
of
I'm looking forward to this weekend. I
yeah.
really am.
So yeah, we still have tickets available. I think there were at least 11 when I looked, but they go fast this last week. So don't wait to the last minute or there won't be tickets. So we've got that. Other stuff coming up. The 17th we talked about. June 28th, we will be at the Haunted Crescent Sanatorium and Prison Paracon. Then July 26th, August 16th, and September 27th, we will be at the brewery. At least we plan on being at the brewery.
Yep.
So, get your tickets now for those. Like I said, we'll be at the Hora and Paracon at Crescent on June 26th. That is 12 to 6. Then there is an investigation available afterwards. A very interesting site from what I've heard. Really looking forward to being there. Not far from some friends up there, so I'll get to go see them after that. Like
Yep.
it's going to be a great day. So
And I get to drive home in the fog again.
yeah.
Every time we're in mid-state.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to be in mid-state quite a bit in the next couple of years, Jamie. So
I know. I know. I'm well aware.
And then you found us on Facebook or YouTube tonight, but we're also on TikTok, Instagram. Paranormal Lens is on Facebook, TikTok. Shoot us an email. Like I said, give us what you liked about this season, what you maybe didn't like. That's paranormal lens podcast at gmail.com. Then you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those fun things. The next day, typically the next day. Sometimes it's a little late to get those things posted, but we're doing our best. So
Good intentions to be
yep.
there.
So yeah. Any final thoughts here, Jamie?
No, just thanks everybody. We're talking about wrapping up season 2 already, and I remember thinking like how we got to the end of season 1, like holy cow, how did we get here? Here we are again. How did we get this far?
Mm-hmm.
So thanks everyone for joining us every week and catching up with us, and letting us get through all this fun stuff. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
say this all the time, but the paranormal field has no walls.
Yep.
So there's lots more to come. I'm excited to start thinking about season 3. Um, we have a few exciting things coming up too. And we're going to be doing something very interesting in a couple weeks as well. So we'll
Yep.
share that when we get a little closer.
Yep.
But
Thank goodness the producers haven't cut us yet, huh, Jamie?
I know, right? I keep waiting for that, like a big hook just to come swinging across my screen here. I'm gone. But yeah, so we appreciate it, guys, and thank you for wherever you are in the world.
Yep.
And we know we're everywhere at this point. We see the analytics, and it's shocking. And I'm so happy that
Yep.
everybody comes along for the ride. And
Yep. I
please let
think
us know
there's
what you want
another.
to see.
Yeah, that was going to be my next comment. Is
Right.
email us, send us what you want to what you want to see. We can rearrange our schedule. I think I saw we have another country on the list, Jamie. I haven't tracked down which it is, but there's another one on there. So
Yep.
thank you. So
All right.
all right,
Well.
here we are, another week.
Yep.
And we'll be back here next Tuesday. Looking forward to seeing people Saturday night. If you can make it out, join us. Should be a fun time. The energy is definitely going to be interesting with Stacy and Gary there. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a great time. So
Absolutely. Yep.
So.
And join us next week for the Dybbuk box.
Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Have a great week.
Good night.